what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the End Zone Report. As always, I will be your host, Chris, and this is, of course, the show where we tackle the NFL. We got another exciting episode for y'all today. We close the book on Week 12, and we look forward to a Week 13. It's going to be an incredible episode today. We've got some Thanksgiving slate games. We have a Black Friday slate game. More games on Sunday night, Monday night. There is games for the entire weekend. It's going to be a blast. Speaking of which, this episode will be dropping on Thanksgiving, so I want to take a moment to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there and their families, and thank you for supporting the show so far in the first few weeks of its beginning. This is the first year of hopefully many, many seasons to come on the End Zone Report. I've had a blast doing this every week for you all as we tackle the NFL and just basically react to the craziness that was each and every week of the 2025 season. And we still have more weeks to come. There's 6 more weeks of the regular season. And on top of that, we'll be covering every week of playoffs leading up to the Super Bowl, which will hopefully be the Broncos, but we will find out when it gets closer to February. But yes, it's going to be, we got a Thanksgiving edition episode for you today. So we're going to go through all the Thanksgiving games, the Black Friday game, slate on Sunday night, and we'll cap it off with the Monday night game. Speaking of which, as a reminder, if you are new to the show, you can watch the show every week at youtube.com/TheEndZoneReport. You can also listen to the audio version on Spotify if you want to. You can also check out the social media pages for the podcast on X, Instagram, and Facebook. I post all the artwork from the episode, so you can look at those and react, as well as breaking news and all the injuries that come through as well. So with that, let's head over and see what is up with the NFL after Week 12. First, let's cover some of the news-related items, and then we'll dive into all the injuries coming out of Week 12. The first one on the list, Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders, has been fired by the organization. My guess is this is going to be the first of probably a couple firings, parting of ways, whatever you want to call it, in that organization. I'd be very surprised if Pete Carroll and Geno Smith come back next year. More so, Geno Smith, I think they're going to call it a one-year experiment out the window, and they're going to bring in somebody else or look at the roster and maybe Aidan O'Connell gets a second chance, or maybe they go get someone like Kyler Murray, who is most likely going to be parting ways with Arizona from what it looks like there. I think they're pretty comfortable with Jacoby Brissett right now. Maybe they sign Jacoby to a longer-term deal down there in Arizona, but Kyler Murray is a quarterback that they could possibly look at here in Las Vegas. Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, is expected to start on Thanksgiving Day against Baltimore in Week 13. He, of course, has been suffering from that toe injury, but he seems to be slated. He's been doing multiple full participants at practice this week and last week, so I think it's about 99% sure that Joe Burrow will be the starting quarterback on Thanksgiving. Shadur Sanders will be the quarterback for Cleveland in Week 13. He, of course, won his first start in the NFL, and we're going to touch on that a little bit more in the storylines today. But he has been named the Week 13 starter for the Cleveland Browns. And then Brandon Ayuk, a wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, who we haven't really talked about in the show because he's been pretty quiet up until now. His 2026 incentives have been voided after missing meetings and not participating in team activities. It's safe to say that he will not be a Niner next year. He will be a top pickup for teams in the free agency. I know the Broncos have been tied to him. Jaguars have been tied to him. Buffalo has been tied to him. Even the Raiders are probably going to be looking at him as well. So Brandon Ayuk will most likely not be a 49er anymore in the future. Now let's dive into all these injuries from Week 12. The first one is one of the bigger ones. T. Higgins has been already ruled out for Thanksgiving matchup against Baltimore. I think he was actually ruled out back on Monday with a concussion. He is now in that concussion protocol. So that'll mean Jamar Chase will get the bulk of the targets from Joe Burrow. Yosivas will be a starter once again, and then we'll sprinkle in some Gesicki and Chase Brown, of course. So T. Higgins is out for Week 13. Also with a concussion, J.J. McCarthy, quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, is now entered into concussion protocol. Most likely, Max Brosmer will be the starter in Week 13 against Seattle. That was a huge game coming up with the Vikings taking on Sam Darnold and the Seahawks in Seattle. But it's trending in the direction of McCarthy sitting out this week and Max Brosmer, the former Minnesota Gopher, starting against Seattle. Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints, suffered a sprained MCL. He is likely to miss time. That would mean Devin Neal will get the bulk of the carries for the Saints. Baker Mayfield, quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has suffered a sprained shoulder. He is very unlikely to start this week. So that is a huge blow to the Emeka Ibuka managers out there in fantasy, as well as Chris Godwin and any other Buccaneer that you are planning on starting. It is more likely that Baker Mayfield will be sitting this week. Ashton Jeanty, rookie running back of the Las Vegas Raiders, suffered an ankle injury. He was apparently pulled from that game because of that game just getting out of control score-wise. They have deemed it not severe, so it's looking pretty likely that he will be starting in Week 13. And then DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, also suffered an ankle injury, but he did return back into the game. So just wanted to point that out there to monitor throughout the week. It is possible, if he does not trend in the right direction, that he could miss this matchup against Buffalo. So that wraps up the injuries and news around the league after Week 12. We will return after Week 13 and see what else is happening with the NFL. Let's head over to our storylines from Week 12. All right, I'm bringing you 5 more storylines coming out of Week 12. The first one is the New York Giants have been eliminated from playoffs. Not even an incredible performance by Jameis Winston could save the Giants from being eliminated. I think it was pretty much inevitable that they were going to miss the playoffs this first year with all the injuries to their team with Malik Neighbors, Cam Scattaboo, the on and off the field with Jackson Dart and the concussion protocols. But Jameis Winston put on a show this week. That receiving touchdown was one of the coolest touchdowns that I have seen in all my years of watching football. It was just an incredible physical performance by Jameis Winston. If Jackson Dart is not able to start this week after suffering the concussion, I think Jameis Winston's going to be a fun start once again. They play on, I believe, Monday night against, who do they play? Let's pull this up here. I haven't had the schedule memorized quite yet. So they do play Monday night against the New England Patriots, who have been really outstanding. But I think that's going to be a fun matchup to watch Drake May go up against Jameis Winston. So Giants have been eliminated from the playoffs. I think after this week, we are going to get a couple more eliminations depending on which teams lose. If the Titans lose, I got to imagine they're probably going to be out. Jets are probably going to be out if they lose any more games. So I think this is just the first of many. We're now at that part of the season where we're going to start getting a better picture of the playoffs. The next storyline I have is the Eagles give up a huge lead. They were up 21-0 at the first half, and then they didn't score a single point in the second half. It was all the Dallas Cowboys. They ended up winning that game 24-21. Just a wild 180 flip of a game script. I honestly thought the Eagles were going to pull this off, especially with the Dallas defense being one of the worst defenses in the league, and the Eagles having one of the most talented rosters on offense. And they definitely showed it in the first half. It's just something clicked in the Dallas Cowboys, causing the Eagles to just collapse in the second half and not scoring a single point in quarters 3 and 4. It was a crazy, crazy game to watch, but that's got to be a red alert for Eagles fans out there if they are able to lose such a huge lead like that. You cannot go into the playoffs with this type of game. This type of game script is a season ender, and the Eagles need to be able to finish these games off if they are going to have any hopes of returning to the Super Bowl. But they did get A.J. Brown involved. They did get Devontae Smith involved. So the passing game did have a huge uptick in performance, which was great. Saquon Barkley had a really good game. So, I mean, it's what everybody asked for. Like, it was a potent offense. It's just something collapsed in the second half to where Dallas Cowboys just owned that entire third and fourth quarter. It was just crazy to watch happen live on screen. But the Dallas Cowboys end up getting a win, and their sights are still set on playoffs and the division title. I mentioned this already, but Shadur Sanders wins his first game as a starter in the NFL. He looked really good. Very, very good. I think going forward, Shadur is the guy for them. I mean, the Dillon Gabriel experience was okay, but I think Shadur might have a future here in Cleveland or with a different team in the NFL. He looked sharp. He looked mobile. He was fierce when he needed to be. He looked good. Now, the roster on offense isn't anything got great. This win was had a lot to do with the Myles Garrett led defense. But Shadur, with the weapons that he was given, and Jerry Jeudy and Harold Fannin and David Njoku, and Cedric Tillman, like, he did what he could with what he was given, and I think there's some promise in Shadur. If you didn't see the post game reports with him, he felt comfortable out there because he's used to being a starter. Being on the sideline, I'm sure drove him insane, and now with him out on the field for the first time in his NFL career, he looked comfortable, and that explains it because he is comfortable as a starter. That's the only way that he knows how to play. And I think his time on the bench kind of prepped him enough to show a strong performance here in his first start. So bravo to Shadur Sanders, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else he brings as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns as of right now. The New England Patriots are the first team to get to 10 wins. Now, with the Broncos being out by, this is a little bit skewed. I'm hoping the Broncos will meet the Patriots in those top wins. But the Patriots look like a Super Bowl team right now. They are top of the AFC. I think right now they are one of the two favorites to go to the Super Bowl. I think they're going to make a strong run here down the stretch of regular season games, and I think they could make a legitimate run through the playoffs with this roster. They do need to get Travion Henderson more involved. I think Ramondre, I know they paid him a large amount of money, but I think Ramondre's days in New England are coming to an end. I think Travion Henderson is the future of the running back room, and they need to get him more involved. Stephon Diggs has been a really good supporter of Drake May, as well as Boutte and Douglas, and Hunter Henry had a lot of targets this week. So the Patriots look strong. They look like a Super Bowl team, and I'm excited to see what they do down the stretch here into the playoffs. And then the final storyline I have for you today is the title of our episode today, and that is Minnesota done with McCarthy? Now, after his performance in Green Bay, I knew exactly what I wanted to name the title of today's episode, and as you can tell from the episode, it is more like JJ McFarty. So it's really bad in Minnesota right now. I work with a lot of Minnesota fans. Of course, living in North Dakota, the Vikings are the home team, so I'm surrounded by Vikings fans. I do root for the Vikings every week, even though the Broncos are my team. The Vikings are the home team, so I respect them. I root for them. I support them. I want them to succeed. But in my opinion, McCarthy is not the guy anymore. I had all week to think about this, and I just, going back and rewatching the film, and especially that Green Bay game, he looked uncomfortable. He looked scared, and you cannot play against a division rival like that. He literally sacked himself. He threw egregious interceptions. What was his stat line? It was something like 87 passing yards total. Like, it was completely ridiculous. of a stat line for him in a game against a division rival. Let me pull this up here. McCarthy. Yeah, I think it was like 13 passes for like 87 yards or something like that. So he had 12 completions for 87 yards on 19 attempts. He had 2 interceptions. He had 2 rushing attempts for a total of 10 yards, which would have been 5 yards a carry. It was just an egregious performance. I was speechless after this. They could not get anything done on offense. And even their defense couldn't hold back Jordan Love as much because, they were exhausted. They're constantly 3 and outs with the offense. So the defense was on the field for most of that game. They were gassed. Jordan Love ended up just ripping them apart, as well as Emmanuel Wilson, who was starting with the Josh Jacobs injury. But going back to the main topic, which is McCarthy, he needs to sit and he needs to focus on getting better. Now, he did take a hit to the head, so the concussion is a real injury. Now, is it something that he probably could come back from this week, and Minnesota is just using that as an excuse to see what they have in Max Brosmer? Maybe. I'm not on that coaching staff, so I can't confirm nor deny that is the reason. A part of me wants to think that this is their easy way out to just try and see what they have roster wise and not publicly state that they are benching McCarthy, because that would basically derail his mentality as a starter and the supposed future of this franchise. But it's just been a very exhausting and frustrating few weeks as Minnesota fans. And I can't imagine McCarthy being the starter the rest of the season. I think they ride with Brosmer, unless it's even more egregious than McCarthy. But we've seen Brosmer come out on the field as a fill-in for Wentz when he was injured, and he showed some spurts there of being able to push the ball downfield, hyper target Jefferson and Addison and get some momentum going on the offense. So I'm very curious to see what Brosmer does in the starts of the coming weeks, most likely, depending on how long they want to keep McCarthy in concussion protocol. But it's trending in the direction that we will get Brosmer against Seattle. And against that Seattle defense, it wasn't looking promising with McCarthy at the start, but now with Brosmer, the third string at the start, this is going to be an ugly game in Seattle. I think Darnold is going to have his eyes set on humiliating the Vikings after parting ways last year. And speaking of Darnold, I think they should have kept him. Now, he has been an incredible eye-opening as a quarterback. JSN is the number 1 wide receiver, and a part of that is kudos to Sam Darnold being in a really good spot and showing his talent as quarterback. So I think, Minnesota screwed up here with the parting ways with Darnold. They definitely screwed up with parting ways with Daniel Jones, because now he's with the Colts and they're looking like a Super Bowl tending team. And Minnesota is probably not going to make the playoffs now. It's just really, really bad vibes coming out of Minnesota, and it's kind of just a wasted season for them as a team. Jefferson has been frustrated on the sideline. It's another wasted year for him where he's considered one of the greatest wide receivers of current season. He's definitely a Hall of Fame favorite, but with quarterback play like this, you have to nail down the quarterback spot for your team. Like, that is one of the most important positions on the NFL team, and it's a disservice to Addison and Jefferson because they're talented wide receivers that their season's pretty much wasted on this constant carousel of quarterbacks in Minnesota. So they definitely need to look at the free agency coming up in the offseason. I really think Kyler Murray could be a huge asset to this team. I think in the Kevin O'Connell system, he could thrive. He has that rushing ability to push the ball downfield. He has shown that he has the arm strength. Now, I know a lot of people knock him on his height, but there's been shorter quarterbacks in the past, and they've all been just fine. But I think more so, Kyler Murray would fit pretty well in the system. Now, I'm sure the Raiders are a favorite as well to sign Kyler with their unknown at quarterback with the performance that Geno Smith has done this year. But Minnesota definitely needs to keep their eyes on the quarterback position in this offseason and help out the weapons that they've invested so much money in on this offense. So that's kind of my soapbox for the week. Is I feel really, really sorry for the Minnesota fans because this is just a wasted season after the incredible experience that we went through last year with the team going 14-3. And it's just really unfortunate that this is kind of the state of the Vikings once again with the question marks around the quarterback room. So those are your 5 storylines of week 12. One more piece that we need to cover, and then we could jump into Fantasy Corner. And that is the Chase-O-meter coming out of week 12. Now, he did go up a rank. He was at 17 last week. He has now climbed up to 16. So Chase Brown is the current 16th running back on the season. Now, a reminder, if you are new to the show, the bet between James and Megan is that Chase Brown will pass the top 10 running backs on the season. Jim is on the side of he will not hit top 10. Megan is on the side of he will break the top 10 in ranking. So far, it's looking like Jim's $20 for him to win, but we are 6 weeks away from finding that out. So there is a chance that Chase Brown could break the top 10 at the end of the season. But looking at his stats from week 12, it's pretty promising once again. Depending on your scoring in your league, the standard league that I do take these stats from is at 15 points. He had 19 carries for 107 yards rushing, which is incredible that he broke the 100-yard mark. He did have 2 catches of 23 yards, and again, a goose egg in the touchdown department. That has been what has really held him back is the touchdowns. He only has 2 touchdowns on the year, and that is why he's sitting at 16. So if he can get that productivity in the red zone and get his butt into the touchdown area, he could have a chance to break that top 10, but he needs to get touchdowns if he's going to have a chance to break top 10 running back. So that is the Chase-O-meter coming out of week 12. We will revisit it coming out of week 13 as the Bengals face the Ravens on Thanksgiving night. Let's head over to the Fantasy Corner for this week's hero and villain of the week. First up, your hero of the week for week 12 is Jahmyr Gibbs, running back of the Detroit Lions. He had an incredible performance this week. He is such an incredible athlete and so fun to watch. I'm excited for some more Jahmyr Gibbs coming into the last stretch here of the season and into the playoffs. So depending on your league scoring, in the leagues that I run, he got 55.4 fantasy points, monster performance for your fantasy team. Off of 12 targets, he had 45 receiving yards. And then on 15 rush attempts, he had another 219 rushing yards for a total of 264 scrimmage yards. It is incredible job in the yards department. And then he did score a total of 3 touchdowns on top of that. Just an incredible piece of this really cool Detroit Lions offense. I know they've been kind of up and down lately, but this was quite an experience to watch on TV live as Jahmyr Gibbs just showcases his talent. It was a pretty rough game for the Lions, but something just switched in Jahmyr Gibbs and said, hey, we can't lose this game. We have to win this against the Giants. So he just went into overdrive mode and just took the game into his own hands and got the points. And he is the hero of the week. You most likely won your week, depending on your roster, of course, but he was probably a huge benefit in your win in your fantasy leagues. Switching to the other side, villain of the week for week 12 is unfortunately Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He scored 6.2 fantasy points this week, 3 receptions for 32 receiving yards off of 8 targets and 0 touchdowns. Very disappointing week for Emeka Egbuka owners, who has been such a huge sensation as a rookie for Tampa. And with the Mike Evans injury, with the on and off of Chris Godwin, he has really made this team his own. But Baker Mayfield was banged up in this game. He wasn't looking that great himself. So as a result, it suffered for Emeka Egbuka as well. This game was not a Buccaneers favored game. So they were kind of picking up the pieces as the game went on. But hopefully Egbuka can bounce back this week. We'll see what he does if Baker Mayfield doesn't start, which it sounds like it isn't. So we'll have to monitor the wide receivers in this game. If you can avoid starting Egbuka this week, I would. But I know he's such a huge piece of this offense. He's probably going to get hyper-targeted by whoever is at quarterback. But it's going to be scary not having Baker Mayfield there at the helm for Egbuka managers. So that is your villain and hero of the week for Week 12. We will return out of Week 13 and name another hero and villain of the week. Let's head into the Week 13 game slate, and then we'll end everything like we always do with a DraftKings lineup. Looking back at Week 12, let's pull up the pick tracker here. So in Week 12, we've got 10 correct picks and 14 wrong picks. So it's still not that bad, but let's shoot for some more wins here. Let's try to shoot for 12 or 13 this week. Kicking off our slate of Thanksgiving is the Packers and Lions are the first Thanksgiving game of the week. Detroit is favored by 2.5. The over-under is 48.5. It is in Detroit. I'm very excited about this game. I'm going to go with Detroit. The Packers have been really hot and cold lately. I mean, so has the Detroit Lions, if I'm being extremely honest. But looking at the roster and looking at the capability of these two teams, I think the Lions also being at home is a huge favor in their part. I'm going to go with Detroit. I think St. Brown's going to have a really good game. I think Jameer is going to have another good game. I think Jared Goff is going to be ready to sling the ball on prime time on Thanksgiving. So I'm going with Detroit. The 3 o'clock game on Thanksgiving is the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. KC, of course, is favored by 3. The over-under is a massive 52.5. This was a tricky one for me. I kind of went back and forth on this matchup, but I ultimately went with the Dallas Cowboys. I think this will be the shootout that Vegas is predicting with that 52.5 line. But I think in the end, I think Dak with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens as his weapon, with Javonte Williams showing some talent on the run game, with Jake Ferguson being a reliable tight end. Now, I know the defense is horrendous for Dallas, so Patrick Mahomes is probably going to have fun with it. But I think it's going to come down to a field goal, and I think Brandon Aubrey will kick that winning field goal for Dallas to take the win at home on Thanksgiving against Patrick Mahomes. Now, that is a huge, risky upset, but I'm going with Dallas. I like Dallas this week at home on Thanksgiving. Final game of Thanksgiving Day is the night game against Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Burrow will return for this game. It is in Baltimore, and Baltimore is favored by a touchdown. The over-under is a whopping 51.5. Speaking of upsets, I am taking my boy Joe Burrow to upset Baltimore on the road on Thanksgiving night. Now, this is probably an even more riskier pick than the Dallas one, but I'm going to ride it. I'm going to ride the Lightning. I'm going to support my guy, Joe Burrow. We're going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals to upset Lamar on Thanksgiving. We do have a Black Friday game this week as well. Chicago Bears taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. That's going to be a fun one, the way the Bears are playing. It is in Philly. Philly is favored by 7. The over-under is 44.5. For those of you that do not know, this game starts at 2 o'clock Central Time, 3 o'clock Eastern. So it's smack dab in the middle of your Black Friday shopping. I know one year I totally forgot that this was a 2 o'clock game and not a night game. So just a reminder, this is an afternoon game. This is not a night game on Black Friday. This is another one that I kind of went back and forth on, but I ended up going with Philly because they are home. I like Jalen Hurts and the newfound, I guess, chemistry between him and A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith has been reliable for him as well. Dallas Goedert's going to get involved. Saquon Barkley's going to get involved. I like Philly here at home. If it was in Chicago, it'd be a little tougher for me, but I'm going to go with Philly at home on Black Friday to win this game. Looking on to the Sunday slate, we got the Los Angeles Rams going on the road to face Carolina Panthers. The Rams are favored by a whopping 10.5. The over-under is 45. Not much to talk about in this game. I mean, Bryce Young has been really good, but this Rams defense has been playing tough. Stafford's got Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. He's got Kyron Williams there to help him out. I think the Rams are going to make a huge name for themselves and continue this monster season that they've been having. Matthew Stafford, I believe, is the current MVP candidate right now. He's playing out of his mind, and I think he's going to continue that momentum against Carolina, so I'm going to be taking the Rams. San Francisco 49ers take on Cleveland Browns. The Shadur Sanders-led Cleveland Browns. San Francisco is favored by 4.5. The over-under is a measly 36.5. Probably because of the Cleveland defense and the fact that the offense for Cleveland is not that potent. So I think they're anticipating the Niners to be up quite a bit and it being a low-scoring game. I am taking the Niners here. I like the roster much better than Cleveland, even though it is tempting to take Myles Garrett and the defense to win this game at home. But I'm going with Christian McCaffrey on the road to beat the Cleveland Browns. I think this will be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to come down to a field goal for the Niners to win this game. So I'm taking the Niners. Houston Texans take on the Indianapolis Colts. Indy is favored by 4.5. The over-under is 44.5. I'm taking the Colts in this one. Coming off of the bye, Jonathan Taylor is playing like crazy. Daniel Jones is looking really good with the Colts. And with the Texans, it's really unknown with C.J. Stroud. It could be Davis Mills once again. The running back room is basically non-existent. The wide receivers have been hot and cold lately. That defense is good for the Texans, so I could see them causing problems for Daniel Jones, but I think Jones and Taylor are going to be able to win this game at home against the Texans. This game is ugly, and it was tough to predict. The New Orleans Saints take on the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Miami is favored by 6 points. The over-under is 41.5. I'm going with Miami, even though I would not be surprised if the Saints end up winning this game. But I'm going to believe in Tua. I'm going to believe in his connection with Waddle. Devon Achane has been a top 5 running back all year. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins to take down the Saints at home on Sunday. The Atlanta Falcons take on the New York Jets. Atlanta is favored by 2.5. The over-under is 39.5. This is going to be a low-scoring game as well. You got Kirk Cousins going up against Tyrod Taylor, most likely. The Jets' defense is not great after they've unloaded assets in the trade deadline. The Falcons have been really hot and cold lately as well. But I'm going to go with the Falcons here. I'm going to trust in Kirk Cousins to get the ball to Kyle Pitts. Let's see if Drake London is coming back for this game. I have not been keeping track of that. I would hope. I don't think he will be back this game. It sounded like that injury was pretty serious. Yep, he is doubtful for Week 13. So I'm going to anticipate it going to be Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson along with Tyler Algier. So we're going to go with the Falcons with a London-less team there. The Arizona Cardinals take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa is favored by 3. The over-under is 44.5. They are in Tampa in this game. I'm going with the Cardinals. Now let me look to see who is the backup for the Bucs, because I am not familiar with the depth chart for the Bucs. So Teddy Bridgewater looking like he's going to most likely start for the Bucs, but I'm going with the Cardinals here. With Jacoby Brissett's playing out of his mind. They're probably not going to have Marvin Harrison back, but they haven't needed him. Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride, they've been really great for Jacoby. The defense with Budda Baker has been tough. The running back room's kind of been a hodgepodge of whatever, but Jacoby's playing out of his mind, and I trust him much more than I do Teddy Bridgewater. So I'm going with the Cardinals to win this game on the road. The Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Tennessee Titans. Jacksonville is favored by 6.5. The over-under is 41.5. I'm going with the Jaguars here on the road. As much as I want to root for Cam Ward, and I almost picked him in this game, but Trevor Lawrence, with his connection with Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington, with the way Travis Etienne is playing, the defense has been playing tough for the Jaguars. I'm going with the Jaguars to win this game on the road, and that'll knock the Titans even further down in the record department, and probably going to eliminate them from playoffs if they're not already. So I got the Jaguars win this game on the road. The Minnesota Vikings take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is favored by a whopping 11.5 points. The over-under is 41 flat. I've already teased this a little bit, but I'm taking Seattle. As much as I really want to take the Vikings here, I trust in Sam Darnold much more than I do with either McCarthy or Brosmer. And the way the Seattle's playing on both sides of the ball is insane. I know the Vikings have a really incredible defensive roster. The offense is great. Just the quarterback room is a mystery. So we're going to go with the Seattle Seahawks to get revenge for Sam Darnold against the Minnesota Vikings. If this was in Minnesota, I'd be very tempted to take them. But the fact that they're in Seattle and Minnesota has been historically bad in Seattle, I'm going with Sam Darnold to get his revenge. The Las Vegas Raiders take on division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are favored by a whopping 10 points. The over-under is 41.5. I'm going with the Chargers. I don't think I could pick the Raiders anymore this year. Geno Smith has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. He has been a monster in the interception department. I love Ashton Genty, so I'm going to root for him to have a productive night. I love Brock Bowers as well, but aside from that, that is it. Even with the defense with Max Crosby has not been great. I think the Chargers are going to easily win this game at home against their division rival. The Buffalo Bills take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Buffalo is favored by 3.5. The over-under is 47.5. Let's see if there's an update on the Rodgers injury. But either way, if it's Rodgers or Rudolph again, I am still taking the Buffalo Bills here on the road. I know the defense for Pittsburgh plays tough, but I believe in Josh Allen. I believe in that system that he has created there, and I'm going to pick the Buffalo. But I'm curious to see if Rodgers did not practice Wednesday, but plans to participate Thursday and Friday. So we will keep monitoring that. He is trending in the right direction to play for Week 13, so we could get the Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers showdown. But either way, like I said, I'm taking Buffalo on the road to beat the Steelers. Sunday Night Football, my boys, the Denver Broncos take on the Washington Commanders. Denver is favored by 6.5 on the road. The over-under is 43.5. More than likely, it's going to be Marcus Mariota against Bo Nix. But let's take a peek. I haven't really been keeping track of the Jaden Daniels injury. He could return in Week 14 against the Vikings. So we're going to go as if it is Marcus Mariota against a incredible Denver defense. So I'm taking my boys to win this game Sunday night and continue their incredible season under Sean Payton and Bo Nix at the quarterback position. Final game of Week 13 is Monday night. The New York Giants take on the New England Patriots. I'm taking the Patriots here. They've been on an incredible run this year. They are the top team in the NFL right now. They're looking like they're a Super Bowl-bound team. And even with Jameis Winston playing crazy like he is, I think Drake May is going to easily win this game. They are favored by 7.5. The over-under is 46.5, but I think they could win even more than 7.5. Now, the Giants have been playing tough on defense, and their offense has been productive behind Jameis Winston. But I got the Patriots winning this game easily over the Giants. So that is my picks for Week 13. Let's end the show like we always do with our DraftKings lineup and show me the money. For this week, we're doing a Thanksgiving edition lineup. So all of these players will be playing on Thursday night. So we will know, most of them on Thursday night. Some of them will be during the day, but we will know the results of this by the end of the Baltimore game. This week, it's a $3 entry fee for a potential $2,000 winning if you hit first place. So at the quarterback position, I'm going with Joe Burrow because he was cheap, and I love my guy Burrow against Baltimore. And then I stacked him with Jamar Chase in the wide receiver room. At running back, I'm going to continue and follow that performance that he had last week. We're going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs against Green Bay Packers. I had to pay up a lot because he was $8,800, but with taking Joe Burrow at $6,000, I was able to kind of spend up a little bit on the running back position. I think he's going to have a great game on Thanksgiving, which means I had to go cheap for my second choice here at running back. That is Kareem Hunt at $5,300. Now, Dallas, horrendous defense, and Kareem Hunt seems to be the guy in the running back room, so I wanted a piece of that game, and we're going to go with Kareem Hunt and Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. I already said Jamar Chase. He's a whopping $8,000 this week, so I had to pay up there. Zay Flowers at $6,100 and George Pickens at $7,000. I wanted a piece of that Dak offense because I think it's going to be a shootout, and I trust George Pickens at this rate more than CeeDee Lamb. At tight end, I went real cheap, so I went with Isaiah Likely, hoping for a touchdown here on Thanksgiving night. And then the flex position, I went wide receiver with Thornton of the Kansas City Chiefs because he was cheap. He's only $3,000, and for me paying up with Jamar Chase and Jahmyr Gibbs, I had to really, really basically punt the flex position and the tight end position. So we're going to hope Thornton gets a touchdown from Patrick Mahomes against Dallas. And then at defense, I went with Detroit Lions. It's been a really hot or cold performance for Jordan Love, and they're really the only strongest defense on this slate of games for Thanksgiving. There was no way I was going to take Dallas. No way I was going to take Cincinnati. I thought about the Chiefs, but with the way Dak has been putting up points, I think they could potentially basically wipe out the defense. So it was between the Green Bay Packers and the Lions. With Detroit being at home, I think the Lions are going to play tough on defense. So that is why I ultimately went with Detroit at the defense position. So that is the lineup for our Thanksgiving edition for Show Me the Money. Let's hope we can win some large amount of money. Let's root for that first place at $2,000 on this lineup. Well, that's going to do it for today's Thanksgiving edition episode of the End Zone Report. We'll come back next week and see what happened during week 13 and look ahead to week 14. Reminder, you can watch the show every week, youtube.com/the End Zone Report. You can also listen to the audio version on Spotify. Take a look at the movie podcast that I do every week as well. You can check that out at YouTube and all the podcast listening platforms if you want to listen to the audio versions. We're rolling through the MCU right now. The next movie that we're going to cover is on Friday. Will be the first Thor movie. I'm super excited to talk about that movie finally on the show. I had a blast rewatching it, and I can't wait to make an episode on it. So with that, again, happy Thanksgiving to all of you and your family, and thank you again for supporting the End Zone Report. It's been an awesome season, and I can't wait for more episodes to come out for you guys. So with that, later, everyone, and have a happy holiday season.